Okay, so you came to this video to be like, how can I add damage using meter? That's real easy. I'm just going to cover that off the bat. Do a B&B. Do your Wreck-It Ender. Do Frozen Spire, and then 214 BC. You get a nice little knockdown. You can do that anywhere on screen. Hey, I'm FoxF. I wanted to do a meter management guide for Lond this version, and I've been in editing hell, so I'm gonna do some of this just semi-live. So just to kind of give a quick introduction, so we've got Icicle Rain, we've got Frozen Spire, we've got EX Blossom, and we got Frozen Vine. I'm gonna call them by their names because last time I did this sort of thing, I tried to describe them with numpad notation and it was just terrible. Something to keep in mind off the bat is the only one of these that guarantees debuff is Frozen Vine. Because it is literally just EX6B. Like if you go back to Alpha Clear, 6B was a 623 motion, and 623C was what remained. That got changed now to 236BC. This literally EX this. The reason this is important is because you can shield every other special and you will not get debuff applied to you. So just for example, you only need to shield the first one. Rain, same thing. Yeah. So you get the idea. Okay, so why does debuff matter? Debuff matters because you can use Frozen Spire like a laser, and it will even eat through other lasers. See? It also lets you full screen confirm off of Icicle Rain, so that's nice. Just as a side note about Ice Rain, this move is totally ridiculous. Don't get me wrong, but confirming is something that you generally do when you're in that boxing range with them. You know, you're over here. If you are full screen hitting this, you're gonna have to spend another 100 meter in order to confirm off that. You know, I've done that in real games, but I think maybe this might be better. Yeah, I think that's better. So, yeah, by the way, the CS does not get you anything if you full screen Ice Rain into CS. That doesn't get you anything. So this move is ridiculous, but you also want to be considering how you can actually confirm off of it. You know what I mean? So unlike the other two, Frozen Vine is kind of unique that you don't need any debuff in order to get something off of it, even from full screen. Yeah, there's another thing that Frozen Vine does that the other EX moves don't do, which is air unblockable. So he can block that. However, this kind of sucks. Let me explain. So, whenever a character's in the air, as long as they have air actions available, they can always assault over where it's tracking to them. It's not hard to do at all. So it will miss unless you lock them down. Also, when you use an EX move after Fireball, your reward is going to be way, way lower. Like, I'm going to do this full combo and I'm going to get like 2.5, 2.6. Versus if I just raw get this hit, I get like, you know, 3.6, 3.7. So you always want to... You want to be aiming for the EX move to hit on its own. You know, following this should be like a confirmation thing, ideally. So one thing that Frozen Spire got that it didn't have before is now it's super, super fast. So if I round start 6-6B, that's 10 frames. I do Frozen Spire, it actually beats it. It is 8 frames startup. And it's really, really, really fast. This also means, by the way, that potentially you can use it as a counter poke in your pressure. So in pressure here, hang on, and then I get that. It's worth noting that in this version, EX startups, it's like 3 frames before the super flash kicks in. So you can actually frame trap using EX moves. That is pretty different for this version. Now, the vast majority of the time when you use Frozen Spire to extend pressure, you're using it because you went through your Rekka series, and then you use it to be plus, quite plus. Plus enough that you can check with lows, so that if they're mashing DP and block stun, you can at least try and catch that input. So something else that's kind of funny though is Frozen Vine is now so fast, you can actually use it at the end of Rekka strings, and it has a small gap, but you need to be reversaled in order to be punished. Like, that's Wagner trying to throw. Obviously, like, she could DP that, or she could VO that. But if you're against a 6-frame character that's below 100 meter... Okay, now Creeping Edge does get you out, but it does not give them a punish or anything like that. Not even anywhere close. You're still +7. As far as I know, I haven't been able to micro dash throw to punish, so I don't think you actually get a punish from it. It's still safe for you to do against roll. So why does this matter? Like, why is this cool? It's cool because you can do this, and that's like all gapless up until the point where you're like +5 at the end for the cross up. So, you know, you can be like really cheeky. You can be really, really cheeky. By the way, one of the most important reasons why you might want to pressure into Frozen Vine instead of Frozen Spire is if the opponent has chain shift. There is a certain tendency for people to just be smashing 2DD and looking for it and get beamed by a gapless overhead. So I use that quite a bit just to check that they're still paying attention. It is worth noting that, you know, Assault is still not great in this version for Lond. It wasn't before, it's especially not now. That's a punish for them. So the majority of the time, you're going to be doing that anyways to be +2 but safer. But just something to keep in mind, like if you know that they're sitting on CS and just really, really want to pop it that way, gapless overhead can be a nice way to check. As far as anything else you do to make yourself safe in Rekka strings, you can do this. There's not really any reason to. if I'm being real with you, like there's really no reason to. What you can do is you can do this. You can CS that first hit and kind of do like a Akatsuki Bitatsu check where you see if they're going to try and shield the second hit, so you can grid break through them. Shoutouts to Defiant, was really successful with that. So you can do that, but there's just really no reason to do this that we have found. Okay, the other thing that you kind of don't want to do is this. You can see it's -12. It is absolutely a knowledge check. But there's something that's kind of worse, in my opinion, about it, and that's that even if you do this knowledge check and they do this, you're still not getting a punish. This is +5, and you just, as far as I know, you don't have the ability to micro dash through a punish here. This is me trying, you know. So the best case scenario you can hope for is not getting punished. I don't like that. I would recommend not doing Rekka into 22C. Alright, let's talk about 22C though, because this move is really cheap. It's like maybe one of the defining strong attributes about Londrekia. So yes, you can end combos in it, sure, but you can do it on block, and I think that's honestly way more threatening. So in this spacing, where you would normally be quite minus, 22C actually makes you safer. And it can even be plus. Now, any spacing where it can be plus, where you can then like pop it and check with 4C to see if they do anything, any of those ranges will have a gap, so you can be reversaled when you try and set those up. and you don't want to take damage and lose your 100 meters. So just be aware of what they're trying to do in those timings, you know. Okay, so as far as the mind games involved, so it's actually very similar to the way Seth works, where if you are close enough, or you don't have enough frame advantage, then they can check you before the orb fires, and they don't have to hold a strike throw mix up before it does. So something like this. That's the idea, but obviously, you know, if they are not on the ball, like let's say they're a little delayed here, they might just still get hit. That would be great for you. But they do have incentive to try and stop you, at least in those closer ranges. When you are further out, you have a really easy time checking a lot of options. And, you know, if they try and up back, you can see Rekka, etc. You know, you've got really weighted RPS in your favor in that situation. And so if they hold that situation, then this happens. Or, you know, you can do the throw bait, which is even more rewarding. So it's a very dial-a-mix option. You know, it's very, if you ever have 100 meter to blow, and you just want to make some things happen, it's kind of why not, until they can show you that they have like a horizontal reversal that they're willing to use, whatever. Just getting that situation out is really good for you. If you are going to do it as a combo ender, I think that you should avoid doing it as soon as possible. You're going to have frame advantage either way. If I have Wagner delay tech here, so it's there, but it is like literally literally a one frame sort of thing. Like, it's extremely difficult to do. So what you want to do instead is rather delay this so that you have plenty of time to let throw protection end, and that also lets you do a way better job of setting up throw baits. Something like that. So yeah, you've got your strike throw mix up that you can do before it fires. Like, that's really good, and that's kind of fundamental. The other thing that you can do is just foresee high-low stuff without ever having to worry about counterplay. So let's say I get this out, I do this. That's a classic. You just check to see if they can block both ways on it. This is another classic. The extremely delayed 4cc, just to kind of throw off some fuzzy block timings. I mean, you can be really organic with this. And not having to worry about the opponent doing anything about your 4C high-low is good enough in itself. Like, you don't have to do anything fancy. You can just do that, and even that will be worth it. Just side note about 2-2C high-low stuff, there was a point when we were messing around with fuzzies. I really don't think that it's worth it, because this move is so ridiculous that you can essentially fuzzy someone for free. Just you don't need anything to set it up, so I'd say don't worry about that. Okay, so we talked about strike throw before it fires. We talked about high-low before, after, during, whatever it fires. The final thing that we need to talk about is left-right. So this is a classic. That is a cross-up. Nothing fancy about it. He just short hops over you. He can do it raw, but in this case, the 2-2C keeps him plus. You can also do this with meterless setups. It is plus, trust me. 2-2C is a little more plus. Plus enough that you can beta veil off if you're on the ball. So you can do this raw at the end of 2-2C firing. You can also use 6B to extend the block stun at the end of 2-2C. So that looks like this. Now the nice thing about this is, look, they've got like this tiny little pixel out of the corner. Especially if they're not used to seeing this. This can be a little tricky for them. 6B itself also just sets up some really interesting stuff. For one, if they green shield there, it's extremely easy to see I mean, the freest grid break of your life. But outside of that, like there's some really interesting tick throw stuff you can do. Like this is actually quite plus. This is also plus. So if you're not checking for green shield necessarily, you can play some interesting sort of strike throw stuff with it. Not getting that pushback is like really cool. Okay, so let's talk about free state a little bit and how you use EX moves to extend free state. So whenever you end a combo in freeze like this, any of your special moves will make free set timer totally reset. And this is really useful for setting up 2-2x Oki stuff. So I'll have a little guide that I wrote up in the beta linked in the description if you want to take a look at that. But here's just an example of like what a full route into that sort of thing looks like. Notice that the damage is still pretty good. You're not actually losing out much on ending in freeze into Frozen Vine over freeze Rekkas and then Frozen Spire. The thing to keep in mind is you're going to build more meter when you end in 6B Rekkas, and that can be good for you, but it can also give more meter to the opponent, so just keep an eye on their meter as well. You can keep them below 100, then that's kind of ideal. Okay, so the other on-hit thing that we need to talk about is 2-2C extending combos. This is really, really cheap. But basically, anytime you end in this high freeze, like this can be off of like really high proration routes. Anytime you end like this, you add on 2-2C, and this entire time extends the freeze state. And you can concentrate in that entire time. And 6B if you want. I mean, it's ridiculous. So your grid gain, if you route into that, is really, really good. The damage is still really, really respectable. It sets you up for winning the next cycle. In this current patch of the game, Lond is like maybe #1 cycle control character because of enders like this. So he can do all of that, but then he can also still get his Oki afterwards. So you do all of this, yes, you're concentrating, and then you get that on top of it. Now you will have to hit the lab and figure out the timing, so that, because obviously the game is not going to let 2-2x and 2-2c exist on the screen at the same time, so you will have to figure out the timing for that sort of thing. But rest assured, you can definitely do it, and it's still very worth it. I guess final thing that I should cover is, you know, meter dump routing and that sort of thing. I will say, by the way, you used to be able to use 2-2c to do setup with veil off routing, and it was always worth doing, and it was like really, really good. Now, because raw IW damage is just so cranked, there's not much of a reason. The time where you do actually want to CVO is on low health combos. So you can now use Frozen Vine as an ender off of Rekkas, and this is particularly useful for CVO stuff. So that's what you're aiming for there. When you're doing high health CVO stuff, again, you want to, if at all possible, just go ahead and extend your combo with CS and aim for raw IW. But if you are doing like a high health CVO thing, then you can pop 2-2C, do something like that. So hopefully this guide makes sense, has been helpful. Too long didn't read is 2-2C is really good. You should use it a lot. Ice Rain is an extremely strong neutral option, but you gotta be cognizant of the risk reward involved and whether or not you're going to actually be able to confirm off of it. 236C Frozen Spire is really cranked. It's super fast. Consider it as a round start when you're sitting on 100 meter going into like round 2 or 3. And Frozen Vine is the Oki enabler. It's really good as like that middle ground between damage and Oki, and you can also use it to snipe people from full screen. Okay, that's it.